Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for July 11th of 2023, and currently we do have a slight risk set up for western Iowa all the way into parts of eastern Montana, across the majority of Nebraska and southwestern South Dakota. The marginal threat does span as far north as the Canadian border and as far east as the Detroit region in Michigan, as well as another marginal threat further down south for the Gulf Coast states into parts of eastern and north central Texas. As for our threats for today, we do have a 2% tornado threat for that slight risk region. As for our wind threat, we do have a 15% with the high significant region for the Nebraska region into parts of western Iowa, with a 5% for that marginal threat region and a 5% for that marginal threat region further down south. As for our hail threats, we do have a 15% with a large region that will see the possibility of large to very large hail across a very large portion of the United States today, as well as a 5% for the rest of that marginal threat. However, we do not have a hail threat for the marginal threat further down south. Because of our threats for today and our weak tornado threat and our potential for large to very large hail and destructive winds, our main threats for today are going to be destructive outflow gusts and the possibility of large to very large hail that could be damaging. Taking a look at our pivotal weather model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, you can see that that high pressure system in the southwest has finally had time to settle into the southwest states and push the jet stream into primarily a zonal flow pattern with a little bit of divergence that could lead to the possibility of overall weak, but the possibility of some directional shear. However, with some strong zonal flow pattern like this in a setup like this, we could see the possibility of some very long elongated photographs and the possibility of some large to very large hail. You can also see some mid-level impulses which will help focus our severe weather development probably a lot of this week, right here and right here. These primary regions back in Nebraska and along the mountains are going to be two separate regions for severe weather development, as that's where the mid-level impulses are going to be primarily focused at. However, in a pattern like this, a very strong zonal flow pattern, strong directional shear is not going to be all that possible. It is going to stay mostly speed shear and allow for the possibility of some elongated photographs and the possibility of some large to very large hail. Taking a look at our dew points, you can see that we do have some fairly strong moisture in the atmosphere in place in the Nebraska region. I primarily will be focusing on the Nebraska region, where we have the potential for more explosive storms and more prominent storms, with the possibility of destructive winds and the possibility of some large hail, as well as the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes. You can see that we do have some fairly strong moisture in place. We have dew points that are reaching the upper 60s as well as the low 70s. With whatever lapse rates we have, we could definitely see the possibility of Cape values that do reach to 3000s, and with elongated photographs and some weak directional shear, we could see the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes and the possibility of some destructive outflow gusts and the possibility of large to very large hail. Taking a look at our lapse rates, you can see that we do have some fairly strong lapse rates in place. We have lapse rates in the Nebraska region that are reaching the mid to upper 7s, as well as the 6s and the mid to upper 8s. This is going to lead to the possibility of some fairly strong instability with the given dew points, definitely getting up to the possibility of Cape values that do reach the 3000. Taking a look at our instability, you can see that we do have some fairly strong instability located in the Nebraska region. You can see that we do have Cape values that are reaching up to the 3000s, the mid 3000s, as well as the upper 2000s, and possibly the low 4000s in some regions. And as time goes forward, you can see that those do increase over time. We are expected to have some fairly strong instability, and with the possibility of elongated photographs and the possibility of some weak directional shear, which we will take a look at, we could definitely see the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes, as well as the possibility of large to very large hail. And with strong instability like this and our strong lapse rates, we could definitely see the possibility of some very strong and destructive outflow gusts. Again, possibility of outflow gusts that do reach the 50 knots or even higher, up to even the 70 knots. So again, with instability like this, all hazards are possible. Taking a look at our bulk shear, keep in mind that a lot of this is going to be speed shear. You can see around the Nebraska region, you can see storms do develop in a region with pretty strong shear. You see wind shear values of the 50 knots. This is going to be absolutely insane for elongated photographs. Again, this is primarily going to be speed shear. If we take a look at one of the simulated soundings, you can see that we do have a little bit of curvature here, which will be our very weak storm relative velocity, that I will take a look at on our storm relative velocity models, as well as our elongated photographs, as well as on our speed profiles. You can see a strong increase in wind speed with height, which will again lead to the possibility of some elongated photographs and the possibility of some large to very large hail. Taking a look at our storm relativity, focusing primarily on the Nebraska region, you can see that we do have an area of pretty strong storm relativity. However, this is going to be back behind storm development and is not going to be usable by any storms that develop in the region, as well as extremely strong convective inhibition behind storms is going to be present, which will furthermore not allow for the possibility of very strong tornadoes with that storm relativity back in there. So all that you're seeing is likely going to be in the wake of storm development and is not going to be usable by any storms that develop in the region. And you can see our storm line here with fairly overall weak but sufficient storm relativity signatures ahead of that in the blues, which will lead to the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes given our instability that is present. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you're in any of the areas that I covered for today, please stay weather alert for the time being, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.